Now that we've got some of the basic render settings set up, let's look at them in practice. So with that setup I just did, if we go hit render now, you'll see this is the light cache and this is the calculation phase. We checked show calculation phase, so we're seeing it as it calculates. Now it's moving into the irradiance map. So what you're seeing is V-Ray calculating the irradiance map, and again it's showing calculation phase. Like I said, having those checked gives you a little preview of what it's going to look like. So you might be able to catch errors before it renders the whole image. Saves you a little time. Otherwise this would just be black and then you wouldn't see anything until right now. So that's the final pass. Now it's rendering. So with our basic global illumination settings, this is the kind of effects we're getting. I set it up with the override material again, so everything's white. I've got the V-Ray plane down here still, and I just have that basic V-Ray sun in there. Now you can see, let's adjust some settings and show you what difference it makes. This right here is the region render. So I showed you in the standard, in the common tab, you can render regions here. That will be overridden by this region render here. I usually just use this one. So even if you close this, you can go back into frame buffer in V-Ray settings and go show last frame buffer, and it'll bring it right back up. And then you can use this region here to say, just render that right there. Now let's zoom in there. See those jaggy edges there? That comes from the anti-alias settings of our rendering engine. So like I was telling you here with the image sampling, we have it set to adaptive. We set the adaptive settings down here. So if I set this to 20, which is pretty high, and then hit render, it's going to render just in that region. Oh, the demo version changed settings on me. Great. Okay, this is a good time to look back at it. Irradiance map, medium, light cache, 1000, that's fine. Make sure global illumination is on. Make sure my override material is on. And then set this to 20, that's great. Let's render it just like that. Oh. Override material is not working because I gotta drag it in again. This is the problem with using the demo version. Okay, now render. Now, can you see the difference between here and here? It's pretty slight, but it's the noise is the difference. Still getting some jaggies on that edge because it's low resolution. But in these shadows, there's not a lot of noise. Over here, there is kind of a little more noise. Up in here, you can see it. So really, in this rendering, you're not seeing a huge difference. Let's set that to 60, which is kind of ridiculously high. Let's set this to 0.001 and look again. You'll notice a huge jump in amount of time it takes to render. Well, not on this rendering because it's so simple. Now you're getting some really smooth. Man, it's really hard to tell on these, on a basic rendering like this, but on nicer renderings with your materials all in there, you'll see a huge difference and a huge jump in time for putting those settings like that. Let's go into this area and render something with this higher quality setup. So you see a little more detail, a little less noise in the shadows. See, this is kind of what it was looking like before right there, where it's kind of noisy. Over here it's real nice and clean. Like I said, on this example, it doesn't make a huge difference, but as we move forward, keep those settings in mind, because They'll make a huge difference once we get all our materials and everything is all set up for final rendering.